Hi there, my name's John Stevens. I'm pastor of Zion Lutheran Church in Oregon City, Oregon, and we are part of the ELCA. And welcome to Dollar Store Children's Sermons, where I take a look at the lectionary text and I tie it to an item from Dollar Tree, junk drawer, kids' room, garage. I don't know, we're doing this thing, and I am glad that you are here. I'm glad, and I give thanks for your partnership in this ministry as we walk along and we do this. So we in Oregon City at Zion are worshiping online. We've been doing that for the month of January, and we'll be doing it for at least a few weeks in February. So if that's where you're at, know that I feel you, and we're keeping our people safe, and we breathe and we mask up. So there we are. I'm glad that we are in this together, and if your congregation forgets to tell you, you're rocking it. You're doing well, you're doing good, and God's grace holds you firmly. So God's blessings be upon you on this day. So let's get into this. We are looking at both the second reading and the gospel lesson. Primarily the gospel lesson with a kind of a bleed over, if you will, or I'm thinking about ink as it moves across the paper. It's with a touch on the second reading. Second reading is Paul talking about God's grace and about how Paul is one of the most unlikely people to be called to this ministry of grace and this ministry of Jesus Christ, because he persecuted the church. He said if anybody should not have been called, it should not have been him. I probably used a couple of double negatives in there, but you get my point. Paul's called, and it's because of God's grace. And because of God's grace, Paul says, I am who I am. And this beautiful thing of grace, of being called and how we are called into the ministry. And by ministry, I don't mean pastor, youth leader. I mean ministry of Jesus, as all of us are called. And so looking at the gospel lesson, that we are called to be fishers of people, that we are called to spread the net wide and far, and that God's circle of grace is always expanding. So some of the springboard ideas that I'm looking at, things like gummy worms, because I like gummy worms. I love gummy bears, and gummy worms ties into the whole fishing theme, and how, I mean, I tell you, they have a meme out there that says, if I'm ever going to be kidnapped, this is the way they're going to do it. And you can't take it too far, and I definitely wouldn't use this in the kids' sermon, but I'm thinking about those things that are bait for us, fishing for us, where gummy worms, someone could go, candy, here you are, John, here's some candy. I'd be like, I'm coming. Coffee is one of it. There's the jokes about, a little path of wine as people follow it. But this idea in this of being fishers of people. So you've got the worms. A couple of the other items I was thinking about is my cat. If I want to get my cat's attention, because, cats are cats. I always like when they say, 2,000 years ago, we worshipped them as gods, and they haven't let us forget it. So where, they won't come unless they're fed. I can pull out a can of cat food. It has to be with a wet cat food, because I feed my cat dry cat food, but it's the wet cat food that really gets Ruthie's attention, where you open that up and meow, 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 meow. And you think I'm just kidding, but my cat Ruthie is the loudest cat I've ever met in my entire life. Meow, 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 meow. But that's that draw to it. A cat toy, if you will. So, things like that draw the attention. The other item is the Dollar Tree sometimes has it. It didn't have it when I looked this week, but yours might. Those stretchy hands, where and party supply stores would have them as well. But the sticky stretchy hands, where you could put something out. You could put a piece of paper out here, and with the stretchy hand, you can spring it out, and it catches and pulls in. Star Trek. The tractor beam, those things that pull us in. We are called to be fishers of people, and it's God's grace and God's love that does the attraction, does the pulling, does that, and we are the person to put it out there and to say yes, here, here we cast the line out. We say, God's grace and God's love and God's abundance is for you as well. And this isn't one of those a trick thing where we're like, we throw that out and go, ha ha, we got you. No, we throw the line and God does the rest, and we're called to share the good news. And so the other option is you can come out dressed up as a fisher person. You can come out and you could be dressed up and you're like, hey, hi kids, how you doing? And talk about that and talk about what do you need when you go fishing, and how might, Jesus talks about being fishers of people, and how would that look like, and what does that mean? And the whole godly play question, I wonder. And again, tying it back into the second reading, it's all about God's grace. It's grace, 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 grace. And that is, I use the word bait, and that has interesting connotations. But in the metaphor of fishing, in that illustration of looking at God's grace, I mean that's everything. God's grace is the fishing pole. God's grace is the line. God's grace is the bait. God's grace allows me to be the one to cast the line. It's all God's grace that we are wrapped in. And so anyway, those are a bunch of springboards around there. I hope one of those can be useful for you. I hope one of those is a hook that you can grab onto, and know that God loves you. God's grace surrounds you as well. May you feel that this week. May you know and experience the love that God has for you as you share God's love with the kids. So, all right, thank you so much for being here, for being part of this ministry, and I will see you next week. Peace.